Welcome, and thanks for tuning in. I'm hoping that our few moments together will encourage and challenge you. Outside my sliding glass door, there's a fountain. I love the sound of that fountain. It's relaxing and pleasant. Occasionally, I'll notice the sound has stopped. I'll then ask myself, wow, how long has that thing been off? In that the sound of the fountain isn't necessarily integral to my day, it might have been off for a long time before I even notice. I guess I notice when I start to miss the background noise. And when I finally notice, I'll check it and invariably find that the water has evaporated and needs to be refilled. Once I refill it, all is well with the world. This leads me to point 1. Most of the time, things around us need tending, because without it, they will suffer. I mean, think about it. If you don't tend to things like your marriage, your children, your friendships, your job, those things are going to suffer. And as I thought about this, I made the parallel to my relationship with Christ. Christ is always there. And though we don't do this in a cruel or premeditated way, we can easily reduce Christ's presence to background noise. If I'm not careful, that relationship can go dry, and I might not notice right away. So what ultimately catches my attention and tells me that my relationship is drying out? Well, for me, there are some telltale signs. First, I start to change. You see, for the most part, I'm a pretty patient guy. But when I start to dry out, I'll notice some impatience. I'll also notice that my communication starts to be tinged with sarcasm. I'll start to notice that the soft spots of my heart have become a little calloused. I might not be as sensitive to the hurting or to those who don't yet know Christ. And I might become a bit more selfish in my view of the world. In John chapter 7, the religious leaders are threatening to take Jesus' life. There's a lot going on in this chapter. You owe it to yourself to read it. Jesus decides to secretly attend the Festival of Tabernacles and ultimately starts to teach in the temple courts. This provides the backdrop for verses 37 and 38. On the last and greatest day of the festival, Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them." So Jesus calls himself the source of living water. And interestingly enough, this scenario is opposite to the scenario with the fountain outside my door. To reiterate point 1, most of the time, things around us need tending because without it, they will suffer. Well, this scenario with Jesus being the source of living water leads me to point 2. My relationship with Jesus needs tending because without it, I will suffer. Jesus will never run dry. He's consistent and he's strong. And when I drift away from Jesus, I'm the one who's going to suffer from my lack of relationship. I'll become dry. If you research dehydration, you'll find that many people are dehydrated and they don't even know it. So experts will tell you to look for some signs: headaches, dizziness, sleepiness, and dry mouth, to name a few. Well, if your relationship with Jesus starts to go dry, what are the telltale signs you need to notice? You might notice a lackadaisical attitude toward your personal spiritual disciplines. I recently had a conversation with someone who was having some difficulties in his life, and when I asked, "So how's your personal time with God?" he replied, "I don't have any." I guarantee you that without quiet time with God, you'll go dry. You might feel a lessening level of mercy toward other people. If you sense a loss of compassion, toward those less fortunate or toward unbelievers, you're going dry. You might experience a lessening desire to interface with other Christians. If you no longer feel the need for consistent Christian community and connection, you're becoming spiritually dehydrated. If you find your affection toward the Lord has been displaced by a desire for anything else, like success or recreation or social media, etc., you're drying up. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus was talking about the end times. In verses 12 and 13, he said, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved." If you would allow me, verse 12 could easily read, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow dry." Jesus knew that our relationship with him would have moments of coldness and dryness. The key is to remember that in those moments, when we start to go dry, Jesus remains the all-powerful Son of God, and we are the ones who stand to lose. So, let's tend to our relationship with God. And of the living water, let us drink much and often. And during this time of sheltering in place, may we tend to our human relationships as well. Salvation may happen all at once, but a thriving relationship with Christ will only happen if it's well tended. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you.